Good morning, everybody. It's 10:30. I've got a cup of tea. Hope you have as well. Now is a good enough time to start. So I hope you've been well since the last meeting. And I hope really that the last meeting inspired you to think a little bit more strategically about your website. Really keen to understand whether you guys have got any questions from the last session, any challenges since then, things that have gone really well with your marketing. It's been a busy time here at Yardstick, as you might imagine. Last month, November, we launched 6 websites, including Chris Budd's Eternal Business Program, which we're very proud of. First time we've done an online teaching course, and that was a challenge, but it was an interesting one. We've recruited a new SEO and PPC manager, Emily, who started last month. And yesterday it was announced that we've been shortlisted for one of the Professional Advisor Awards 2019 as Best Service Provider. So that was quite nice. So it's been busy here. Hopefully everyone can hear us. So just drop us a line if you can. Clearly you can't drop us a line if you can't. We are joined again by Dan Campbell. I am. So Dan will be fielding your questions and queries. Keep them coming in, please. These sessions are far more useful when they're interactive and you guys ask questions and give us feedback, tell us where you disagree. Nicola, yeah, it is only audio today. Most of today is a PowerPoint presentation, so you don't get the chance to look at me, I'm afraid, today, which is probably a blessing. So we're just going to stick with audio today. As last time, we will make a video recording available to everybody. And I think what we're going to do from January onwards, unless anybody objects, is to combine the 2 sessions, combine the 9 o'clock session and the 10:30 session, probably into one starting at 10 o'clock, if that's okay with everybody. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen and we will make a start today. So hopefully everybody can see it. And the conversation today is all about websites. For me, websites are a massive part of your strategy, which we talked about last time. They support both online and offline marketing strategies. Almost every financial advisor or planner that I know has a website. I can think of one that doesn't. And it's your shop window, so it's hugely important, it's right. So what are we going to cover over the next hour? Well, we're going to look at the 3 aims most advisors have for their website. And then the importance of taking an evidence-led approach, which will become clearer. How to pass the split-second test, a trap that we have seen many financial planning firms fall into. So we're going to talk about what that is and how to avoid it. And then we'll round off with 5 things which often get missed from an advisor or planner's website, and things to consider when you're auditing your site. As usual, we will make these slides available to you after the call, along with a copy of the recording. And keep your questions and queries, please come in to Dan, and we'll break off. If I say anything that you think I'm wrong about, please challenge me. If you think we're right about something and you can back it up with some evidence which would support our assertion, that would be great as well. So, as I say, an effective website is at the centre of your marketing strategy. Apologies, just let me change this. An effective website is at the centre of your marketing strategy. And it's crucial to it's crucial to generating new clients. And there's a reason for that. And that is because if we think about the journey that a potential new client will take, particularly a referral or recommendation, they're going to spend a bit of time Googling you. That might be because they simply want to get your telephone number or email address or way of contacting you. It might be because they are they're not quite ready to get in touch. What they were told is good and they're happy with it, but they want to do a bit more due diligence. They want to kick the tires a little bit more. And heading online and Googling your name, your business name, is part of that due diligence process. What they see online and what they see on that Google search results page will increase or decrease the likelihood of them getting in touch. And I don't know when the last time anybody on the call Googled themselves, but running brand searches is very, very important. So you can see, and putting yourself in the shoes of the consumer, so you can see what the consumer sees when they're Googling you. And as I say, the more positive, the easier you are to find, and the more positive things they find about you, the more likely they are to get in touch. But a fair proportion, and you can see this from your Google My Business listing and your Google Analytics, a fair proportion will be running a brand search, will find your website, and then we'll go and have a look at it. And this is where the website's crucial in terms of referrals and recommendations, because it gives your website visitors that chance to check you out before they get in touch, and then understanding, and gives you a chance to understand more about your business. It's important for the website visitors as well. So other people may find your website having found your business name through a number of different ways. They might have seen you on Unbiased. They might have, They might have seen you on Unbiased. They might have seen you on Vouch4. They might have driven past your office, seen an advert you placed in a local magazine, seen some PR or an award or something along those lines. But it's a good way of, there's a fair chance that they will end up on your website having seen you in that regard as well. And in terms of new clients, your website has essentially 3 jobs. The first is to turn a website visitor into an inquirer. So getting the right people to take a call to action so that you can start that conversation and start understanding whether you're the right person for them and they're the right person for you. Because clearly it needs to be a two-way street, it needs to be a partnership. So that's the first job. In terms of new client acquisition that your website has. Its second job is to deter or signpost people away who aren't ideal clients. And there's a number of ways of doing this. And I don't know if anybody does it already. It might be worth, if you do it, just maybe dropping down a little note, because I'd be really interested to have a look. But there's a couple of ways of doing it. You could be really, really quite upfront about it and say, we do not deal with these types of people. You're not right for us if you are wanting someone to pick funds or pick stocks or generate 15% year returns or whatever it is. The more subtle way of doing it, which I've seen, is to include a line, we work best with. Ideally, we work with, and then produce a list. But that is important because it does deter people from getting in touch. I've seen other advisors and planners put fees on their website as a way of filtering out people who might be cost sensitive. I don't know how many people on this call actually put fees on their website. If anybody does and wants to admit to it, then stick their hand up. That'd be really interesting. But it's important that the right people are getting in. The right people are getting in touch with you. Thank you, Andrew, for raising your hand. I know you put fees on your website. But it's really important that you are getting the right people to get in touch and deterring or signposting away those people who aren't ideal clients. And then the third job of the website is to pre-sell or start to pre-sell you and your business, what you do, who you do it for, and the reasons to use you. The referral person referring you may have already started that process, but continuing to do it, continuing to emphasize why someone should work with you is really quite important. So in terms of new client generation, those are really the 3 things which we would suggest, the 3 jobs your website has. So thank you, Samantha. What have you got on your website? Our ideal clients are often, we state our minimum charge on our website. That's interesting. Do you go into more detail, Samantha, about the charges and fees, or do you just state the minimum charge? Be interested to know about that. For existing clients, your website provides a degree of reassurance. It's a check-in point that they can come back to should they wish to. It's also often a place where people will go to access your client portal. If you're on an online portal for them to get valuations or in these post-GDPR days, documents that need to be security protected, that can often be a very good way of signposting them through your website to that portal. If you add blogs, news articles, content on a regular basis, then putting that onto your website and pushing people to it via newsletters and social media, again, for existing clients, that's important. And of course, it's easier for existing clients to refer you on if you have a credible website, if you have an impressive website. It makes the ability to refer on so much easier. So from an existing client perspective, those are the reasons why our website is important. But from a new client's perspective, it's about turning a visitor into an inquirer, signposting away those people who aren't your ideal clients, and then pre-selling what it is you do and who you do it for. And I just want to just pause a minute and just talk about, some of you on this call will have been on our Google Analytics webinar about 10 days ago now. And if you would like a copy of that recording, just let Dan know, drop him a note now. But it's so important to take an evidence-led approach when it comes to making conclusions about your website. If a client comes to you, or a prospective client comes to you with a portfolio of funds, ISAs, pensions, etc., it's unlikely you're going to be able to make any definitive conclusions until you've run some analytics on it, FE analytics or something similar. You might be able to provide a gut feel initially, but you won't be able to provide that detailed analysis without using some sort of tool. And the same is true of a website. Even the ugliest website in the world can actually be really quite effective. My wife is a financial advisor. For those of you who don't know, she runs a website called investmentsense.co.uk. It is not pretty, it is not cutting edge, and it is, to some people, really quite ugly. But they get 8,000 unique visitors a month. It generates really decent numbers of new inquiries, got a bounce rate of 20%, it works. So that's a good example of your initial gut feel actually wouldn't be backed up necessarily by the stats. So it's so important to take an evidence-led approach, and that's really combining the data that you see in Google Analytics. And as I say, if anybody doesn't have Google Analytics on their website right now, give us a shout, we'll put it on for free. And as I say, if you let Dan know, we'll send through the video for the Google Analytics webinar. So that's your first port of call for data. The second would be your Google My Business listing, which has a small data portal behind it, and that shows some interesting information. And then the third, which we recommend all firms keep, is a log of new inquiries. I think last month we went through the information we would suggest you keep in terms of new inquiries. And combining the data from those three sources will help you understand how effective your website is being. Dan, I can see a few things coming through. Have we got any questions?
Yeah, so a few people asked for the analytics recording. I've just dropped a link in the comments box there to the YouTube page.
Thanks.
So we've got a question from Wazim. Can I contact you regarding Google Analytics when the new website's done?
Absolutely, Wazim, of course.
Yeah, and Wazim also wants the Google Analytics webinar link. Yeah, just in the chat box there for anybody who needs that. And that's it for questions.
Fantastic. And I would strongly suggest that you never make any changes to an existing website or develop a new site until you understand the analytics. Why would you why wouldn't you take evidence-based decisions? There's some key numbers when you go into analytics, but probably the most important page is to look down at the behaviour tab and then start analysing the performance of maybe your top 10 pages We did it on the Arstic website about 6 to 8 months ago. There was a couple of pages which weren't performing, the bounce rate was too high, meaning people were looking at the page and then going away to a different website and not spending time on hours. And we were keen to do something about that. We took some action, came back to it a month, 6 weeks later, and found that actually our action had worked and the bounce rate on the page had fallen significantly. And I looked again last week and it's remained low. So again, really important to take those evidence-based decisions. And we bang on about Google Analytics till we're blue in the face, but it is so important to take those evidence-based decisions. It's also important that when someone hits your website, you pass the split-second test. All websites of this nature, and particularly the websites of financial advisors and financial planners, need to pass that split-second test. And it just means, the benefit of doing so is that someone knows what it is you do, who you do it for, and whether you can address their trigger or not. And they just then feel relaxed enough to go around and look through the rest of the site. And you can address the split-second test through content, through words, and also through imagery as well. But what we've got to remember, and this takes me on to, it will take me on to the trap that some financial planners' websites fall into. But what we've got to remember is that people are generally coming to your website because they have a financial, there's a trigger for them seeking professional advice. Now that trigger might be something relatively mundane, a conversation around the water cooler at work, stock market fluctuating, a pensions wake-up pack falling on their doormat, or a statement coming through which they don't understand. It might be something mundane like that. It might be an event, something happening in their life, either positively or negatively. Births, deaths, marriages, divorces, what else have we got in there, Dan? Inheritances, winning the lottery. Lottery wins, that's a positive one. Anything along those lines, events that happen to necessitate or could necessitate the importance of professional advice. And then the third trigger, more aspirational. I want to change career. I want to sell my business. I want to start a new business. I want to retire. I want to move house. Those sort of more aspirational things that professional advice can help them achieve. But it's so important that within the context of those triggers, we pass the split-second test. And that's because people are increasingly impatient online. We skim read now, which is why your writing style on a website is probably, it should be different to your writing style in a printed brochure, to your writing style in a suitability report. Really short sentences online with a active tone of voice, broken up with subheadings, bullet points, etc. So important to write for the online reader. Because as I say, we skim read, we filter out content, we probably see images before we read content. It's massively important to get images right, and we'll talk about that in a bit. And information needs to be conveyed quickly and succinctly. You can tell whether your website passes the split-second test or not by getting your analytics and reviewing things such as your bounce rate, whether people spend less time on your homepage than average. Are they hitting your homepage, not quite working out what it is you do, and then deciding to go elsewhere? Or if there's fewer pages visited on the website. Again, another sure sign that your website isn't passing the split-second test. So go back to the site. It's really important that you do that and you pass that split-second test. Once you've done that, we can then start talking to people about what it is you do, who you do it for, and the benefits of working with you, and trying to turn them from a visitor into an inquirer. But the trap, and we spoke about this on a blog last Friday, which everybody will have, hopefully most of you read. And it was interesting to see the reaction to this blog. It was our best day for new inquiries for a while, so it definitely hit home. But it also managed to annoy a couple of people. In fact, one advisor rang me up just to tell me he was pissed off with me because of the blog. And we actually had quite a nice conversation after we got it off his chest. but it certainly divided people. And that trap is that too many financial planning websites talk too quickly, effectively come on too strongly, and talk too quickly about financial planning, talking too quickly about what they want to talk about, what the planner wants to talk about, before they've talked about or recognised the trigger that someone has with getting on, for coming on their website. We've all been on websites where within a couple of seconds of going on, there's a pop-up offering you a guide, there's a live chat coming up, you get asked whether you want to receive notifications from the website, etc. And it's all too much too soon. And you end up, like you guys, but I end up running away, going off to a different website. It just is too much too soon. And I'm not saying most financial planning websites do that, but often they do talk about too early what it is they do and how they change lives, how they help people live the best life possible, etc., etc. When in reality, someone has come on their website with a trigger, problem they want solving, an aspiration they want help achieving. And we need to make sure we show how we can help solve that problem, how we help achieve that aspiration before we go on and talk about the benefits of financial planning or lifestyle financial planning, etc., etc. So empathise with the visitor first, show knowledge of that visitor first, show interest in them, then talk about financial planning. Don't fall into the trap of talking about financial planning too early. So that's me off my soapbox now for the rest of the day. We've done some work and we've found that, and you can go back through your website and take a look at this, but we've found that there are 5 things which are often missed from the websites of financial advisors and planners. And the first of these is social proof. And along with Google Analytics, we've talked a lot this year about social proof. And that essentially is using the thoughts and words of others to prove what a good job you do and the value you deliver. And we'll talk in a bit about the types of social proof, whether it's testimonials, case studies, etc. But social proof is so important. Most advisor websites have some on there. Most will be a list of testimonials on a testimonial page, which our stats show generally people don't visit. So that's often something that's missed off social proof. Calls to action, again, are often missed off. All too often we see websites which, top right-hand corner, which is a really valuable space on a website, and this is where calls to action should ideally be placed. But top right-hand corner, they've got a little bird, a little LinkedIn icon, and a little Facebook icon, pushing the visitor out to their social media pages. Now, aside from the fact that social media pages are often, all too often, infrequently updated, we should be using social media to push people to your website, not using your website to push people to your social media channel. Mark Zuckerberg doesn't need your help in getting people to Facebook. He's quite capable of doing it himself. And I don't know about you, but when you follow a link out of somebody's website to Facebook, the first thing you see is the little notification thing at the top right-hand corner. Who's been in touch, starts looking, and just get completely distracted. We should be using social media to push people to your website, not the other way around. And again, while we're talking about placement, point 4 here, all too often we see accreditations, chartered, the certified accreditation, SOLA, etc., which you work really, really hard for to achieve. All too often we see those hidden away in the footer with just a logo there and no other explanation. It's the wrong place to put it. You're putting your chartered status or your accredited status or your SOLA status or whatever it is on a par with your privacy policy and your regulated statement. It's in the wrong place. You're hiding it away. It should be at the top. And it also should be accompanied by detailed information to explain how that accreditation sets you apart, the hard work you have to do to achieve it, how it probably means you're held to a higher set of ethical standards, and how it benefits the consumer. And that's the really crucial point, along with how it differentiates you. Those 2 things, so important that you talk about that, and not just hide away the logo and expect people to understand what that pretty little chartered logo looks like. Chartered logo means massive importance to do that, and it's a big mistake not doing it. Number 3, we often see missed off information about the type of people that you work with, or the type of people you don't, and we'll cover that off in a bit more detail in a minute. And people, you work with people all day, people in your team, people who you outsource to, particularly on investment propositions, and people who your clients, and they're so often missed off. And when you miss them off, websites become dull and bland. When you put them in, they come alive. We would always recommend you put people on your website. Now, I'm going to have a swig of my tea while Dan asks me a question.
Okay, so a question from Wazim. If we are pension transfer specialists, would it be good to include that also?
If it's a niche you're working with and it's a niche you want to promote, then absolutely. We've got a few clients who hold pension transfer specialist status but don't actually want to promote the fact. They will use it when necessary with existing clients, especially those who are nearing retirement or with lifetime allowance issues, but they won't want to heavily promote it. On the flip side, we've got other clients who want to heavily promote it, and we've run Facebook advertising campaigns for a number of things. So if you want to actively promote it, if it's a key specialism, then absolutely, I would talk about it. You've got to sit within the compliance rules of being clear, fair, balanced, and not misleading, etc., which I'm sure you would be anyway. And making it very clear the pros and cons if you are talking about that. But if you want to generate inquiries of that nature, then yes, absolutely, I would be talking about it.
Yeah, so Wazim caveats that with, I'm currently involved in transfers, so it might be worth it.
Yeah, I would agree with Wazim. Just make sure you stay on the right side of compliance, which I'm sure you would do anyway. And yeah, if it's specialism and you want more work in that area, absolutely talk about it. But don't talk about it I wouldn't talk about it in the respect of products. I will be talking about it in terms of people. So the problems you're solving for people, the things you're helping those people achieve through your pension transfer specialist status, whether it's an earlier retirement, a more flexible retirement, being able to hand on the fund to younger generations, solving lifetime allowance issues, whatever they are. Talk about the problems you solve with your pension transfer specialist status or the aspirations you help people achieve. Hope that helps, Rosie.
Yes.
Good. So those are the 5 things we often see people miss out from their websites. Flipping that over, what I want to talk about now is what we believe are the 12 tips to help you build an effective website. And when we mean effective, we're talking about those 3 things, remember, of turning a visitor into an inquirer, and pushing away, signposting away those people who aren't quite right for you, and starting to pre-sell what it is you do and why someone should work with you. And the first and most obvious is to get the homepage right. For most websites, and Google Analytics will tell you whether this is true for yours, the homepage is the gateway to your website. It's therefore so important to get it right. We believe there's 27 things you should put on your homepage. 27 might sound a lot, but even the simplest website, if you look at Apple, for example, Apple have got a super simple, classy, clear website, but there are hundreds of little things at play on that site to make you do what Apple want you to do. So even the simplest, clearest website has dozens, hundreds, lots of little nuances to make you do what you want to do. And we believe there's 27 things you should put on your homepage. We've got a blog for that if anybody wants it dropped down the line. And make sure you pass that split second test. So if I was starting to review an existing website, we'd be looking at the homepage, assuming it was the page, which was the entry page for most people, and Google Analytics will tell you that. Then next, be mobile friendly. The average amount of traffic to an advisor or planner's website on mobile is actually less than most people think. About 2/3 comes from mobile and tablet. Sorry, about 1/3 comes from mobile and tablet, about 2/3 comes from desktop. And therefore, desktop is clearly more important. However, mobile traffic is generally increasing. Part does depend on your demographic. The more elderly your target clients, the more likely they are to be on desktop. The younger your target clients, or if you're a mortgage broker, it's probably more likely to be a higher proportion on mobile and tablet. But it is certainly increasing. So that's one reason to make sure your website is as mobile friendly as possible. The second, of course, is to make sure that for those people who are visiting it, they get as good an experience as they possibly can. Now, there's 24,000 different Android devices, God knows how many Apple devices, etc. available. So getting it right every time is a challenge, and it needs to look as good as it possibly can. But if you get your phone out after this webinar, look at your website. If you're having to squint to see things, if you're having to expand the screen, if you're having to shrink the screen, it's a surefire way that your website isn't as mobile friendly as it should be. And the last reason is to keep Google happy. Google's search algorithm will contain lots, just almost indefinite number of criteria. We know that adding content to your website helps search. We know Google reviews help you rank on search. We also know that being mobile friendly and mobile compatible is a ranking factor. So it helps to keep Google happy as well. So for those reasons, just focus on getting your website as mobile friendly as possible. Dan, I've seen a few things come through. Have you got any questions?
So Susie asked for the 27 things checklist. So I've just popped a link in the chat box for everyone so they can have a look at it.
Fantastic.
And that's it.
That was it. Okay, fine. Yeah. Know your numbers. Again, we've talked a lot about Google Analytics, but just one last time. Knowing your numbers is massively important. Don't make any decisions about your website, about whether to build a new website, about whether to make changes to an existing website without looking at your Google Analytics. It's your friend, it's free. It's that important, we'll even put it onto your website for free. You don't have to be a client to be asked for us to do it. If you want us to do it, drop us an email. But it will show you what's working, what's not working, and then you can make changes based on that evidence. Getting calls to action right is crucial. Remember our first aim with the website in terms of new client acquisition is to turn people from visitors into inquiries. That means getting the calls to action right and putting them in the right place. Personally, we recommend adding calls to action to the top right-hand corner of every page and having other forms and other calls to action throughout the site. And your primary call to action, the first thing you want people to do is probably pick up the phone and give you a call. So the primary call to action is your telephone number, which should be clickable on mobile, etc. But not everybody wants to get in touch with you or make that first move by picking up the phone. Some people just won't be able to do it. They're browsing at lunch, at work, in an open plan office, and don't want to be overheard. They might be browsing your website at the weekend or out of office hours, in which case picking up the phone will be pretty pointless. They might not be at a stage where they want to talk to you, but actually they're a bit nervous about picking up the phone. You are highly qualified, in their eyes, potentially intimidating ringing up a financial advisor or planner. If you think, if I was speaking at a Brett Davidson conference yesterday, and one of the financial planners in there was a lady who specialised in dealing with widows, relatively elderly widows. And we were talking about the fact that many of her widows are nervous. They're of a generation where their husband might have dealt with the finances. They might not have been involved in those discussions. They might not get on with their husband's financial advisor or planner. And they're dealing with the emotion of their loss. But they also need to deal with the practicalities of the financial affairs. And getting in touch with a financial advisor or planner, that professional, is actually something that's quite intimidating for them. So that's why we would suggest a secondary call to action that allows people to get in touch without having to pick up the phone. And that might be a form online that they can fill in with a minimum of information: first name, last name, email address, contact number, and a free type box so they can put some message in there. Might be an email address. But that secondary call to action is important for those people who can't or don't want to take your primary call to action, which is picking up the phone. And then we would also recommend a newsletter sign up, assuming you produce newsletters, of course. We recommend adding a newsletter sign up, which allows people who aren't quite ready to get in touch, well, for whatever reason, time's not quite right for them, or they want to just follow you for a little bit, understand more a bit about what you're about. So that newsletter sign up gives them the chance to do that. And of course, by you sending them a newsletter, it allows you to start and continue demonstrating your knowledge, your expertise, your skill, and just giving them a regular nudge, a regular touch, that you're still there and that you are ready to talk to them, and willing to talk to them as and when they find that it's the right time for them.
Dan, so we've got a question from Wazim. He asks, what were the sub-points for Know Your Numbers, which I believe was tip 3?
Tip 3, come back to it, there you go.
Yes.
Hopefully that answers your question, Wazim. You're going to get a copy of the slides anyway, so we'll make sure you get that. Hopefully that's enough for you. So we talked about getting the call to action right. Again, so important. And just to emphasise the point, we see far too many sites where top right-hand corner you have social media links and telephone numbers hidden away somewhere. Let's make it easy for people. Tip 5: great quality images. Now, images probably fall into 3 categories. The first is your team and your location. Images about you and your business. It's always been a bit of a mystery why people spend thousands on a new website but won't spend a few £100s on some professional photography, and are quite happy to put a team member up against a wall and take a picture with an iPhone. And you can get some great stuff on iPhones, but nothing beats good quality professional photography. We've seen a few sites. The Ovation site's a good example that have used illustrations. Our website uses illustrations. Not sure it's necessarily right for a financial planning firm. I think part of it depends on your target market. So the first type of imagery is to view your team and your location, and that's best achieved through professional photography. Then we suggest, especially if you want clients in a certain geographical area, including imagery of that area. We did a website recently for a firm in Saddleworth, and they were keen to have clients within a certain geographical area. We've done Hunter Lake and Walker's website. They want clients in Leicestershire. So for those 2 sites, we included really high quality imagery of that local area. Then the third type would be, and this is where it starts to get a bit dangerous. The third type would be lifestyle images. And a website that is just text will get very boring. So it's quite difficult to avoid having some form of lifestyle imagery on the website, potentially to illustrate a point. Stock photography can either be really, really beautiful and enhance a website, or it can look like this. And we've all seen this couple walking down a beach, sometimes walking away from us, sometimes walking towards us, but they're always happy, they're always holding hands, and they've always got one foot in the waves. And it's just a cliche to put that sort of stuff on your website. And as some financial planners have pointed out to me, it doesn't actually reflect real life. Plenty of people get divorced after retirement. Plenty of people who unfortunately are widowed after retirement. So it doesn't necessarily reflect what people want, but it does seem to be a bit of a default. We would recommend avoiding this sort of cliche stock photography, but don't let that put you off using stock photography on the site, because there's some beautiful stuff and there's some really good sources out there. Dan, have we got anything?
Yeah, so Nicola asks a good question. Now this is going back to tip 4 on the getting the calls to action correct with the newsletter signups. So Nicola asks, do you recommend a pop-up within the website asking people if they want to sign up for the newsletter? If not, how can you publicise the fact that they have a newsletter which people can sign up for?
Okay, good question, Nicola. We've never put pop-ups on our website, mostly because feedback has always been from the planner or advisor that they don't want them. And however, we do have newsletter sign-up forms. So if you look at the Yardstick homepage, for example, is a good example. We've got a get in touch form on the left and a newsletter sign-up form on the right, or the other way around. Most sites that we produce have a newsletter sign-up form, which is constantly in the same position on every page, so that people know it's there. Pop-up, you could try it, and I'd be led by the evidence. So I would look at the bounce rate on the pages where you had the pop-up beforehand, add the pop-up for a period of time, and see whether you A, get any more newsletter sign-ups, which is the end of the game, and B, whether it negatively impacts the engagement on the page through bounce rates, time on the page, etc. If you were going to have on a pop-up, I would probably delay it so it only appears after, I don't know, 15, 20 seconds on the page, maybe a bit longer. I wouldn't have it appearing immediately. I would make it clear as well, and you should do this with newsletter sign-up forms anyway, make it clear what someone will get, how often you'll send it to them, and the value they'll receive for doing it. And once you put your pop-up on, review it and just see whether it makes any difference. I would then always link either the pop-up or your newsletter sign-up form to your newsletter, to your MailChimp or .mailer or whatever it is you use to send newsletters, so that the data is automatically entered into your database. But I would, in terms of the pop-up, I would try it and see what happens. Hopefully that answers the question. Where were we? Oh, these two walking down the beach. Right. Tip 6, be specific. We've talked a lot, last time about the importance of knowing your target market and building detailed client personas. Really, really important to take that through to your website and make it clear who it is you work with and who it is you don't work with. And have pages, as we've shown on this example here. This was from the first website we ever produced. And it does two things by breaking it down like this. And you can argue that people near retirement is a bloody huge niche. There's millions of people approaching retirement in the UK. But nevertheless, from a user experience perspective, if I am approaching 65, under threat of redundancy, I've got a DB scheme, I've got a gut feel that pension freedoms can help me. My peers have retired 2 or 3 years ago, I'm playing golf and enjoying life, but I'm still at work. I know where I'm going to click. I'm going to click on people nearing retirement. If I'm a business owner and I'm in the fortunate position of making excess profits, but I'm a bit hacked off because I'm paying too much tax, I know where I'm going to click. So from a user experience perspective, it helps people navigate around the site more effectively. It also demonstrates specialisms. I know that the people who run this business specialise in dealing with people like me. It helps as well to signpost people off. So if I'm going on this site as a first-time buyer, I pretty much know that they're not for me. If I'm going on this site because I want to talk about equity release, I know these people are pretty much not for me. So it helps from a navigation perspective, but helps as well demonstrate specialisms and expertise. We've talked a lot, we may do a separate webinar about this, about the importance of working in niches. It makes marketing easier, it makes developing a proposition easier, and it makes developing your processes easier. It makes everything easier. And the only reason for not niching down is the fear of missing out. And I'm yet to be convinced why, or I'm convinced that adding detailed information about the types of people you work with and potential types of people you don't work with is a positive. I don't know if questions are positive to your site. Dan, have you got something?
We have. So just going back to newsletters, we've got a group question from Samantha. So when we surveyed our clients, they told us the thing they valued least was our newsletter. Are newsletters valued by prospects? And what is the evidence if so?
Right, that's a really good question. The evidence as to whether people value your newsletter can be found in the data that your MailChimp or .mailer, your bulk email system, spits out. and also your Google Analytics. So for example, the last client that we looked at, we regularly have check-ins with clients, and the last one that I looked at, their newsletter was getting a 72% open rate, which is massive. It's huge. It had only ever had 2 unsubscribers, one of which was the financial planner's mother. She took a bit of umbrage too. She said she didn't want to receive it, not quite sure why. And click-through rate was about 38, 40%, something like that. So that's showing us that the recipients were indeed reading it and opening it. And to get to that point, though, we surveyed their clients and said, we're thinking of introducing a newsletter, what would you prefer? Would you prefer printed monthly or quarterly, electronic monthly or quarterly? And the client had a preference because of their environmental outlook to do email. And the most popular answer was monthly and by email, so that's what we've done. The evidence shows that clients and the people on the list we're sending it to, so clients, introducers and professional connections and prospects, people who have not yet become a client, not yet engaged, are indeed opening it. So look at the evidence. I wouldn't go with anecdotal feedback. If one client says they didn't like a particular edition or don't like it, then that's a valid opinion, but it's only their opinion. It's a data set of one. And by all means take on board what they say, but look at the macro, look at the higher level numbers. Hope that answers the questions. Right, so where were we? Yes, tip 7. I'm just conscious of time, we've got another 14 minutes.
Okay, just quickly going back to the previous tip around ideal clients. Wasim's got a question. If we stipulate our ideal client on the website, do we not risk alienating others? Would it be worth having a separate landing page or mini website and signposting clients who fit that to there from the main website?
Right, I think I understand the question. Back to fear of missing out, was it? Seth Godin talks about, and I'm paraphrasing him, but he talks about the smallest viable audience. And what he's essentially meaning is have the fewest number of clients possible to help you achieve have the fewest number of clients that you need to achieve your goal. Why work with more? And the Seth Godin stuff around that is fantastic. And it's the fear of missing out. If you are working with people at or close to retirement, there are millions of people in that market. You are not going to miss out. You are not going to fail to achieve your business goals by not talking about other types of people that you work with. Have confidence in your proposition. Have confidence in the type of clients you work with. I've seen businesses, multi-million turnover businesses built on dealing with dentists, doctors, consultants. There's only so many of those around as well. So personally, I would have, look at us at Yardstick. We're in a niche of maybe 8,000 firms. And we've got competitors, but we're all doing okay. So have the confidence in your niche. Have the confidence to chunk it down and deal with a particular group of people. You won't regret it. The firms that I see which are financially more successful are those who work in a niche. The financial advisors I see who are struggling commercially are those who don't necessarily know who they work with or what their proposition is. I hope that helped, Rosie, and sorry for getting onto my soapbox again. Nikki, you've got a question. I'd be interested to know what our open rates and subscribers and click-through rates are for both our newsletters over the past 3 months. Of course, that's possible, Nikki. We'll have that on our monthly check-in. That will be included on our KPI sheets. So we'll put that on our monthly check-in. And just following on from Wasim's point, it's easier to explain the problems you solve when you are working within a niche. People are interested in themselves. And this helps you avoid falling into that trap of talking about financial planning and talking about what it is you do too soon and before you've empathised with the visitor, understood their problem, shown an interest with it, etc. And it's far easier to do that, far easier to do that when you are working within a niche. And of course, it goes without saying, no products. Really try and avoid talking at least on the majority of your website. Sometimes you can't avoid it in blogs, but those websites that have got pages for investments, pensions, mortgages, savings, etc. We talk about people, not about product. Sure, the product might be a solution to a problem, to achieving an aspiration as part of a wider financial plan. But at the end of the day, the conversation has to be a start with triggers, problems, aspirations, not product. Tip 8, there's only 12 of these, so we're near the end. Tip 8 is to reduce anxiety and demonstrate expertise. It's massively important to helping turn a website visitor into a prospect or to get it into an inquirer. They've got a problem or aspiration. If you reduce any anxiety they've got about working with a financial planner, working with you, and demonstrate the expertise, you have the expertise, experience, skills, knowledge to solve their problem, you will go a long way to turning that person from a website visitor into an inquirer. Most websites don't do it, and they really should. And we've got to remember that different people going onto your site will have different anxieties. Back to the widows that I was talking about yesterday when I was presenting with Brett. A widow will have a different set of anxieties than a successful 30-year-old entrepreneur. The widow might be concerned about being scammed, about being overcharged, about seeing a financial advisor for the first time and what's involved. The young tech entrepreneur will probably be more interested in the fact that, do I have to leave the office to see this person? Are there issues over my time? I'm time poor, but I do know I need this expert advice. So if we can understand and then try and reduce that person's anxiety of demonstrating expertise, demonstrating that you have the ability to solve their problems and help them achieve their aspirations, you'll go a long way into achieving that first aim of turning them from a visitor into an inquirer. And part of that is to build good quality team sections. Your homepage will generally be the first most popular page. Somewhere in the top 3 will be your team section. And we generally recommend having people on the homepage, your team on the homepage of your website. And we then generally recommend a team page with profiles for every member of the team, providing, of course, they're happy to do it. And that means every member of the team, from the chairperson at the top, right the way through to the newest apprentice who just came through the door last week. For advisor and planner profiles, we would recommend having these things on here as a bare minimum. Most advisor and planner websites don't go into sufficient detail on their team member profiles. We think that's a mistake, and this is what we recommend putting on. It's also a good chance to work in keywords, whether those are product-based keywords or location-based keywords. Team pages are a really, really useful way of doing that, and that's important if you're targeting clients in a certain geographical area. I would also think about how you display people on the team page. It doesn't look good necessarily to have all the advisors at the top and all the admin team at the bottom. There's ways of building team pages to be a bit more sophisticated than that. So that's the sort of things we'd expect to see on an advisor profile page. Now, going all the way back to the 5 mistakes people often make on websites. The first one was social proof and a lack of social proof. And that might take the form of testimonials, it might take the form of case studies, it might take the form of video. I would suggest that on the gold medal position for social proof would be, or the social proof from clients, would be client videos, whether those videos are testimonials or case studies or a hybrid of the two. We've got some really good examples, Jones Hill, Swindles, and a couple of others. If you look at the First Wealth website, they've got some beautiful client videos, really beautifully done. Berry and Oak up in York, Henwood Court, really, really nice client videos. And we're seeing more financial planners do this. There's some investment of time and money, and you need to ask your client and get them to agree, clearly, and you need to organise it. The results are fantastic, and that information can be used, those videos can be used for a long time and used in a variety of different ways. On the silver medal position, we would suggest written testimonials, long form, 100 to 150 words, where the client is happy to have their name published, a broad location, so Dan Campbell Derby, Phil Gray Nottingham, and we'd always recommend including a note to show the length of the relationship. So a client since May 2005, whatever it may be. That shows longevity of relationship. Really, really important. A note about other social proof could be Google reviews, voucher reviews, client surveys, all sorts of good stuff like that. But don't hide it away. And testimonials are a good example. Most advisor websites will have a testimonial page. However, Google Analytics shows us that they average maybe for every 100 business site, 1 or 2 will look at the testimonials page, and they're hidden away. There's a reason why Facebook don't put all their adverts on one page for people to go and look at. It's because nobody will go and look at it. Facebook scatter the adverts around the site so the user sees them incidentally to their normal browsing. And that's exactly what we should be doing with testimonials and social proof. Really important that we do that and get that right. And then the third step, the bronze step, very much the bronze step, would be unattributed testimonials, which are short and frankly not very useful. So Dan was great. Enjoyed working with Dan. I'm sure you did, and I'm sure he was, but it isn't actually particularly informative or showing me how Dan changed my life based on financial planning. Really, really important that testimonials are as long, useful, as attributable as possible. Tip 11, content. Content's king. Bill Gates said that years ago, and there's no reason to doubt him. And what we mean by content, we mean content on pages, but also blogs, etc. It demonstrates expertise. It shows off your skill. If it's distributed via newsletters, it reminds existing clients that you're there, adds value to them, hopefully will increase the number of times they refer and recommend you on. For prospects, again, massively important. Continues to demonstrate knowledge, continues to build your brand, and gives a timely nudge and a reminder that you're still there, waiting and ready to advise them when their time is right. Gives people a reason to return to your website, and it's one of those things which drives organic traffic. Content is massively important when it comes to SEO, and it's important that we remember to help Google. The majority, organic traffic, generally speaking, is the most engaged traffic. It's got the lowest bounce rate, it's got the highest time per session, and it's got the most pages viewed per session. It's engaged, and that's because the visitor who finds your website, having looked at Google, generally has an immediate need. We don't tend to Google things that we don't have an immediate need for. Why would we? So that's why organic traffic is generally the most engaged. And we need to make Google's life easy. That means adding content to the website. It means doing things like Google reviews, but it means getting your page titles and descriptions right as well. Basic stuff. I often get asked how much someone should spend on SEO. And for me, SEO isn't a thing. It is a combination of lots of different things which are basically common sense. Page titles, getting them right, getting keywords into the page, getting as many pages on your site as are sensible to do so, which is why it's important to have the team sections. What else we've got? Content, getting Google reviews, all those good things will help improve your search engine rankings. 5-10 years ago, it was all about link building. It's not now. It's about a series of common sense steps that will improve, and generally, sometimes a bit of luck, that will improve your search engine ranking. So that was the 12th of our tips. But what we've got to remember is this isn't the field of dreams. We can't just build a website and expect people to come. We've actually got to do some hard work. Building the site is only half the job. The other half is working hard to push people to the site, as part of a wider marketing strategy, and then getting them to take those all-important calls to action. So we turn the right visitor into an inquirer. And that is exactly an hour. Hopefully everybody's found that useful.
Yeah, we do have one question outstanding from Chelsea. Now, this was back when we were talking about niches and ideal clients. So Chelsea asks, if you want several niches, do you recommend landing pages?
Okay, it's a good question. I think if anybody's got any other questions, I've got time to hang around, so feel free to ping any more through that you've got, and love to hear your comments, love to hear what's going well and what your challenges are like. But in answer to your question, Chelsea, I would have, the website itself, I would have on the home page and in the navigation, buckets as we had on this page here. So that's a screenshot of a section from the home page. And also a screenshot from a section on the Who We Work With page, which someone can then navigate to business owners, senior execs, or people near retirement. So that's on the home page or on the Who We Work With page. There's then a sub page for business owners, senior execs, and people near retirement. So you've got 3 sub pages. On each of those, I would have information about how you help, let's take business owners, so how you help business owners, the problems they have, the aspirations they want to achieve, those 3 a.m. moments, those things that wake them up at night. So I have text on around that and how you can help. I'd have clear calls to action. I would have testimonials on there from business owners that are clearly business owners, so I'd name the business, assuming they're happy to do that. And if you've gone to the extent of having video case studies, I would have video case studies on there from business owners. So I would repeat that for each one of your niches. Then you could potentially use that as a landing page for other campaigns. So let's say you did a Google AdWords campaign targeting business owners, you could use that page as a landing page for that. You could use it as a landing page to show on social media how you help business owners, etc. So I would build those pages anyway. And then if you decide to use campaigns such as AdWords, which require landing pages, you've already done the job. Too many AdWords campaigns just send people to a homepage, which is a mistake, especially if it's specific campaigns for that specific niche. That was a long-winded answer, Chelsea. Hope it answers your question. Do we have any more?
We do not.
Okay, we do not. Fantastic. Right. If there's no more questions, we shall leave everyone to it. Have a great day. It's probably not too early to say wish everybody a happy Christmas. We will be back in the new year. As I say, we're probably going to combine these sessions of 1 at 10 o'clock each Wednesday morning, or first Wednesday of each month. In the meantime, have a great Christmas. Get in touch with me or Dan if you've got any questions, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.